Okay, now today I will be predicting every NFL division. So for every NFL division, I will predict who comes in first place, who comes in second place, who comes in third place, and who comes in fourth place. So starting off with the NFC West. So my fourth place team, I'm bottoming out the division. I'm gonna have the Arizona Cardinals. They were bad last year and bottomed out the division last year. And I see that continuing this year. Their team just doesn't have enough talent. They did bring in some new people, but most of them are veteran, average players that won't improve the team. Kyler Murray may rebound, and they did give Marvin Harrison Jr., but their team just isn't competitive enough to compete with the other teams in their division. Then in third place, I have the Seattle Seahawks finishing in third place. Um, they made some minor improvement, but I'm still really concerned about their defense and their offensive line. But I trust that their offensive line will improve with the development of the younger guys. But their defense, they let Jamal Adams go, and I don't really trust their secondary and their linebacking core. To me, is still kind of on the weak side, and I'm not sure how well Geno Smith will do. So I have the Seahawks finishing pretty much where they did last year in third place. And in second place, I still have the Rams. I don't think the Rams have overtaken the Niners yet. I'm still slightly concerned about their cornerbacks. Tre'Davious White is coming off an injury. They lost Aaron Donald and tried to replace him. Their offense looks good though, as long as Stafford doesn't drop off or regress. Their offense has very good talent. Should definitely compete and win a ton of games and compete for the number one spot. But to me, the number one spot still belongs to the 49ers. 49ers were probably the most talented team last year, and they did lose some players in free agencies. And I don't think they didn't exactly improve during the free agency. But to me, they're still probably one of the top talented teams and should continue that. And Brock Purdy is a franchise guy. I am slightly worried about that offensive line though. And then going to the AFC side, we're going to do the AFC West. So bottoming out the division, I'm going to have the Denver Broncos. They shed a ton of talent. They shed like veterans. They traded away Jerry Jeudy. They traded away or let go of Justin Simmons. They just lost a ton of talent, and they didn't really improve it via free agency. I think their biggest pickup was like Brandon Jones. Bo Nix will probably be starting. He's a rookie quarterback, so I don't expect a lot of things from the Broncos. I think they're gonna suck this year. And in the third spot, I'm gonna have the LA Chargers. I'm not a huge fan of Jim Harbaugh, especially the run scheme he's trying to implement, because I think running won't really win that many games in this day and age. And Chargers defense do have a bit of talent like Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, but Chargers defense weren't exactly good last year until the end of the year against weaker opponents. I don't think Chargers improved on that front enough and been too much focusing on the offensive line and running backs, but they still will win a lot of games. But I have a surprise team at number two, and that's going to be the Raiders. Raiders surprisingly went 8-9 that last year, and I like Gardner Minshew a lot. I think he can just hold on and keep the passing offense somewhat competent. I really like Zamir White, but to me, it's that defense. Last year, near the end of the year, that defense started really improving, and I expect it to continue improving. So after Raiders finishing second and maybe a playoff spot, but that's for future predictions. And obviously, number one is going to be Kansas City Chiefs. To me, they improved. They did lose some guys like just Jarius Sneed and didn't really replace him with anybody, which might be concerning, especially for their secondary. But they got Xavier Worthy, they got Marquise Brown. Their offense improved, and everything else pretty much stays status quo. They do have the best quarterback, head coach, and tight end, so I expect them to continue being number one. Then let's go to the NFC South. In the fourth place, I'm going to have Carolina Panthers. Carolina did definitely try to improve during free agency, brought in guys like Robert Hunt, Deontay Johnson to help Bryce Young, but but I personally don't think they're brought enough to move out of the cellar. Their defense, they traded away Brian Burns, and their defense is coming off kind of a disappointing year, and I'm not sure how much Bryce Young will improve. I still see the Carolina as the fourth place team. And number three, I'm going to have the New Orleans Saints. Pretty much what I said last year as well. I think their team is starting to age. Dennis Allen, to me, is not a good head coach. Guys like Cameron Jordan starting to get old. Demario Davis, if he's on the team anymore. And Derek Carr is always going to be Derek Carr. So I have the Saints at third. Number second, I'm going to have the Buccaneers. I'm not a huge fan of how the Buccaneers kind of stayed status quo. Their defense was trash last year, and I don't think they improved it too much. So I expect them to be similar to last year, even slightly worse, so I have them finishing in second. And the first place team I think is going to be the Atlanta Falcons. They got the rest of their defense is still kind of concerning, but I think their defense with guys like AJ Terrell and Jesse Bates still has a lot of potential, and their offense with Kirk Cousins, actual competent quarterback, I think can get them over the hump and win a very weak NFC South. And then for the AFC South, to me, probably the hardest division to predict. But in fourth place, I'm still going to have the Tennessee Titans. I'm still worried about their offensive line. I'm still slightly concerned about their defense and their new head coach. And really, to me, I think Tennessee Titans just the most concerning, unpredictable team. Like you got a brand new offensive line. You got Will Levis, who not a lot of people know. Good weapons, I'll give it that much. They have good weapons in Hopkins and Calvin Ridley, but very much unknown for the rest of the offense. Same thing with the defense, so I have them finishing fourth. And then third place, I'm going to have the Indianapolis Colts, another team that I really didn't like that stayed status quo. It's not like their team is not talented. They do have guys like Quentin Nelson and DeForest Buckner, but I wish they did more to help Anthony Richardson. I'm not sure how Anthony Richardson will do, so I have the Colts finishing third. And second, I'm going to have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Similar, they also pretty much stayed. They did lose Calvin Ridley, but I expect Trevor Lawrence to bounce back. Their defense was not great last year, and I'm hoping they will have some improvement with the free agents they brought in on defense. So I have the Jaguars finishing second. To me, Trevor Lawrence, I think he will bounce back this year. But obviously, first place, I gotta have the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud should continue as long as he doesn't fall into a sophomore slump. But he shouldn't have to. The Texans, they got Joe Mixon. The offensive line should continue to develop, and their wide receivers are great. And their defense, with a defensive-minded head coach, I expect them to improve, especially the young guys like Devin Stingley, and they brought in a veteran like Danielle Hunter. And then let's go to the NFC North. NFC North, bottoming out the division, I'm gonna have the Minnesota Vikings. To me, they have like the worst quarterback situation of all of them. Sam Darnold, JJ McCarthy. I don't think either of them is ready to start day one. Their defense isn't exactly talented, although they do have a good defensive coordinator in Brian Flores. And their offense, other than their skill position players, really with their wide receivers, their offensive line isn't anything spectacular, and their running game, Aaron Jones, I'm not sure how much he has left in the tank, but he should be good, but still kind of concerning. Number third place, I'm still going to have the Chicago Bears. Their team is definitely talented, I'll give you that much. Their wide receivers, probably the best or top 5 trio in the NFL. Their running game is solid with Swift. Their offensive line hopefully maybe improves, though that's an area of concern. Their defense, late last year, the defense started improving and should keep improving. Only reason I have them in third is really Caleb Williams. I'm not sure how well he's gonna do. He is a rookie, and their coaching staff, I'm not a fan of Matt Eberflus, and they're bringing in brand new offensive coordinator. So really, their coaching and the rookie quarterback is what keeps them in third. And then second, it's gonna be a surprise. I'm gonna pick the Detroit Lions. Nothing against them. They did pick up a very good cornerback in the draft, but I feel like they should have done more to help their secondary, especially, just help more in their secondary. Offensive line should be good, but not as good as last year, especially losing Jonah Jackson. And their wide receivers, I wish they improved that more as well. But other than that, I think their team is pretty much the same as last year, so it should be similar to last year. But I think the Green Bay Packers, who I think will be winning the division, will improve more. The Packers were just a very young team. Even if they didn't do anything in free agency, I think the young players will develop a lot. Jordan Love will develop a lot. Their wide receiving core will develop a lot. And they did pick up an offensive line to help And their defense isn't anything bad. They have a lot of talent like Jair, Kenny Clark, so I expect the Packers to win the division again. And then switching over to the AFC North. In fourth place, I'm going to have the Steelers. Steelers, they try to improve, but a brand new offensive line is always concerning. Brand new offensive line usually takes time to gel, and I don't really like either of their quarterbacks, really. I don't really like Justin Fields. I don't like Russell Wilson's, and their wide receivers, skill position players aren't anything special, really, only George Pickens and Najee. Their defense should continue being what they are every year, talented, talented and good. So I expect, but it's a very tough division, so I have them finishing fourth. Then in third place, I'm gonna have the Cleveland Browns. No idea how Deshaun Watson is gonna do, but Browns starting to lose a little bit of their talent. Their offensive line is starting to get a little bit shaky. Nick Chubb is coming off a little bit of an injury, a big injury, and Browns not sure if they can repeat the defensive performance last year, so I have them finishing third. And then second place, I'm gonna have the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals, I don't think they improved that much. Not gonna lie, their defense wasn't exactly great last year, and they didn't exactly get better, especially with Trey Hendrickson requesting a trade. Offensive line should be better, but they lost Tyler Boyd and Joe Mixon. I'm not sure and I don't trust Zach Moss to replace Joe Mixon. Joe Burrow should be healthy, but I just don't think they have enough juice to defeat the Ravens, who I have winning the division. Ravens, even though they did lose their coordinators, their defense got kind of shredded a little bit. I still trust in Lamar Jackson. The offensive line is decent, and they finally got a decent, pretty good wide receiving core. And then you have the NFC East. In bottom out division, I'm gonna have the Washington Commanders. Washington Commanders, to me, biggest concern, offensive line for sure. Offensive line, I don't think improved enough, and that's going to cause Jaden Daniels a ton of problems. Even with his leg, their skills position players are pretty good. Their defense, similar thing. I don't think they improved, but I don't think they improved enough to get them out of the cellar. And then in third place, I'm going to have the Giants. The Giants did bring in guys like Brian Burns, who should help their defense. The offense is still kind of shit, though. Daniel Jones isn't going to help that, but Daniel Jones does have his moments. I'll give him that. He does have his moments, so I think they'll finish just above the Commanders, barely. And then in second place, I'm going to have the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys, they didn't really sign anybody new other than Eric Kendricks and Zeke, but to me, they didn't really lose anybody of significance that much. Tyron Smith has been injured for the past few years, so I think the Cowboys have pretty much stayed status quo. So I expect them to maybe do a game or two worse, but not much more than that. But unfortunately, I think that'll drop them to second place. And then that first place, I'm going to have the Eagles doing what they always do in the offseason, signing big names and drafting big players. But that will probably help their team. I expect Jalen Hurts to become healthy, bouncing back. I am concerned. I'm surprised nobody's talking about how the hold that Jason Kelsey left on their offensive line, but I think they have good enough skill position players to combat that. I am also still slightly worried about their defense, but they did draft probably one of the best cornerbacks, and their defensive line is still very good, so I do have the Eagles finishing first. And then for the AFC East, the last division we have, finishing last, the Patriots. Similar to a couple other of the bottom seller teams from last year, Patriots, they improved. They didn't improve enough, though, to pull out the basement. Drake May, not sure if he's going to be a day one starter, but he's not going to have a ton of weapons to throw into. And they have a new coach, a new system. Patriots probably going through some pains before they get any better. And then third place, still going to have the Jets. They have a very, very talented team. Their defense probably top three at this point. They didn't really lose anybody important, and even the person they did lose, they kind of replaced them immediately with Hassan Reddick. Offense, they improved their offensive line with guys like through the draft and Tyron Smith. I'm still not 100% sure how well that offensive line will hold up, but really my biggest concern is Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he's going to do too well coming back, but that's just my prediction. And in second place, I'm going to have the Miami Dolphins. They did lose a couple of very important pieces like Hunt and Wilkins, but they did replace him with decent guys like Fuller. So they did have a pretty good draft, and I just heard they signed Odell Beckham. So Dolphins, they're an interesting team. I can see them falling to third, but they also have potential to win the division, so I have them evening out at second place. Then in first place, I'm going to have the Buffalo Bills, even though they lost a bunch of veterans like Poyer, their center Mitch Morse, Stephon Diggs. I still think they have the best quarterback in the division of Josh Allen, and they have a bunch of young players that I think could develop very soon. So there you have it, my predictions for NFL divisions.